With me today is Mayor Bloom, and I'm Roger Horton, and Council Member Mayor-elect Helene Schneider has just come in. The subject today is the Redevelopment Agency 2009 Annual Report, and I see Mr. Bossi is here. Mr. Samario, would you like to introduce him?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Bob Samario, Interim Finance Director. And the report today will be given by two individuals. First, we'll start with Mr. Brian Bossi, our Redevelopment Manager, and then followed by Rudy Livingston, our Accounting Manager. And they do have separate parts to discuss. And so I'll turn it over to Brian.
Good afternoon, Finance Committee members. My name is Brian Bossi. I'm the Housing and Redevelopment Manager. And what we have for you today is the Redevelopment Agency's annual report. And what that is, it's actually a number of reports compiled into a larger report. And what the three components include: the state controller forms, our financial report, or comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR, as well as the State Department of Housing and Community Development's housing report. Copies have been provided to Council, as well as available in the City Clerk's office, as well as our Housing and Redevelopment Division offices. And what we're going to do first is Mr. Rudy Livingston is going to run through some financial figures for you, and then come back to me, and I'll go over a few of the highlights for this year and maybe some leanings towards the future and what's to come for the Redevelopment Agency.
Okay, Rudy, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Rudy Livingston, and I'm the Accounting Manager. And there's one other place where you can find a copy of the CAFR that Brian didn't mention. That's on the website. It is now available, and it's at www.santabarbaraca.gov/government/finance/CAFR. And so that is there for your reading. Today we are going to give a brief overview of the CAFR that we have published here recently that is part of this report. The first thing I want to mention is that every year we have an independent audit that the auditors come out and they perform a lot of tests on controls and documentation and various things. And once they're finished with the audit, they form an opinion on basically whether the financial statements were, it's funny accounting language, but presented fairly in all material aspects. And we did receive an unqualified opinion this year, which means that we met the guidelines and the standards promulgated by the accounting societies and the regulators and those folks that are out there that look over these things. So I just wanted to make sure that we got that in, because that just means things are doing all right. I want to mention that the CAFR that we have here, it's a couple of years ago they implemented the GASB 34 model, and the GASB 34 model put a new layer of financial statements in the CAFR, and that is trying to make it more on a full accrual basis, more like a corporate America type financial statement would be shown. And the first schedule that I'm going to show is actually our statement of net assets, which is the traditional sort of balance sheet, if you will, with our assets and liabilities. And in the governmental accounting, we don't normally show the long-term assets and liabilities, and that's why they've had this statement of net assets.
This is page 15, Rudy?
This is page, I believe so. Page 12?
According to the table of contents.
Okay,
Net
I
assets
don't
is
have my copy of the CAFR here with me.
well, yeah. It's both 12 and 15.
Yes, page 12. Page 12 is where the schedule that you see before you right now. There's a couple of things that I wanted to point out on here. Is the first line says cash and investments. That is our regular pooled cash, which we have approximately $28 million of that at June 30th, 2009. If you go down a few lines there, it says restricted assets, and it's got another line that says cash and investments with fiscal agents. That's money that is set aside basically for the capital projects. When we sell the bonds, it goes into those fiscal agent accounts, and it's held by those fiscal agents for restricted purposes. So at the end of the year, we had $26.2 million in our fiscal agent accounts. You'll notice down in the liability section there that we have approximately $65.6 million of long-term debt payable. It's about the 8th line or so from the bottom there, right above where it says total liabilities. That's our bonds and notes that have been issued for the RDA construction projects, housing projects, and the various purposes for which the RDA is performing services. Yes.
Just to remind me of the timeline, the $59,630,000 that's due in more than 1 year, the bonds payable. What's the absolute ending fiscal year that's due? I mean, it keeps sort of.
Those things, I believe, the final payment on those is 2019.
June 30, 2019? Or
yeah, they don't
somewhere
actually coincide exactly with June 30th, but it's in that year. Yes.
Okay, so it's in that year, but the RDA, the increment is ending in. Which
The
15?
increment, it depends. See, the increment, that's a.
Or am I
interesting
getting into a
discussion.
can of worms I don't want to get into right now?
Yeah, it may be so, because part of the increment, there's a maximum on the total amount of tax increment that we can receive.
Right.
And if we reach that cap before a certain date, then we stop at that point in
Right.
time. So it's kind of up in flux. We believe that we are going to reach the tax increment cap somewhere between 2017 and 2019 at the current rate.
Okay.
Each year we update a schedule to kind of calculate that out based upon growth assumptions.
Okay.
So,
Okay. No. just
sorry, I
trying
can't
to-
give it a precise answer on
I
that,
know.
but that's the
well,
time
30
frame.
years ago we didn't care what year it was, but now
That
we
is
do.
true.
So I was
That
just
is
trying.
true.
Thank you.
Coming to an end very shortly. The last thing that I wanted to point out on here is the net asset section, which is down at the very bottom. On the GASB 34 model, we have to split things out into and reserve for various things. One of those is invested in capital assets. That's essentially what we have spent on capital projects, less the debt that was used to finance those capital projects. And that's a cumulative number. We also have a couple of other items down there that says restricted for capital projects. That's money that has to be spent on capital projects. The one below that is $44 million. Those are low mod loans primarily. Since that money isn't going to be coming in the near future, we have to reserve that in our net assets. And then the amount that everybody likes to see, the one at the very bottom, which says the unrestricted, and that's what we have the ability to spend however we want to within the RDA function. And that's at 13.9, almost $14 million.
Now, Rudy, just to clarify that one, that does not include projects which may be on one of these lists, but which we may not actually go ahead with, correct? That's a different item.
Yeah, what we do is we take this unrestricted amount and we kind of program it out, and we schedule out what we anticipate spending things for. And that changes from year to year based upon council and the board priorities as the board sees fit.
It's also the pot where if the state wants to take something, where it comes from, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The next schedule that we're going to look at is in the traditional governmental model that we have. I want to just go through, we talked about these numbers throughout the course of the year in a lot of different ways, and here I just wanted to go through how we did with the budget compared to the actual results. And I'm going to do the general fund and the housing fund separately. When I'm talking about general fund, I'm talking about the General Redevelopment Agency fund, not the city's general fund. We can see that the amended budget for the general fund was about $14.7 million of revenue for the year. We actually passed that, and we received $16.7 million. Most of that is in tax increment revenues, and we actually beat our growth projections there. On the expenditures, we budgeted $5.8 million of expenditures. We only spent $2.4 million, so we ended up with a $3.4 million variance in that. One of the reasons for that is that we were anticipating that the state was going to take some money from us, about $1.4 million, if I remember the number. Brian says he's got that etched into his memory, and so that's one of the big reasons we were holding back that money. And then we won the state redevelopment agency won a lawsuit against the state, and it was determined that we would not have to pay that money in for this year. So that kept our expenditure, well, that provided a good portion of that expenditure variance. Let's move to the housing fund now. And the housing fund is much that's a 20% set aside. So every dollar of property tax we get, 20% of that goes into the housing fund for our housing and low income activities. We budgeted $3.9 million of revenue in that fund. We actually ended up receiving $4.8 million. Pretty simple math with the general fund. If that goes up and we have a positive variance, we end up with a positive variance in this fund also. In this fund, though, we budgeted $1.7 million of expenditures, and we actually ended the year with $2.1 million. So we spent $400,000 more than what we had planned. And the reason for that is because we actually forgave a loan during the year. From time to time, we make loans to very worthy organizations, and a lot of times we hold these loans out there that we really intend them to be grants, but in order to make sure that they comply with their covenants, we hold these loans out there, and once they've complied with the covenants or some period down the road, we bring an item before council and the board, and we ask to have those loans forgiven, and that's the case that happened here. You can see there was a $404,000 loan forgiveness during the year, and that's what accounted for that difference in there. And other than that, I don't have much more to lead us through on the CAFR here, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time on any of it. And next week we plan on having the whole city CAFR, so if you miss something here, then you'll have a chance to go back, because that's part of this is included in the overall city CAFR.
I'll do my question that I bring up during the year about when we get into monthly statements, and so now's the chance, right? We got the audited amounts, so when we now start seeing the monthly RDA reports in the future, and there's some items that were completed and still have a budget, we can move it over and put it in the big account. Yes, that's not.
Yes,
Good.
that is correct. You have to remember that the CAFR ends June 30th.
Correct.
So since that time, we have closed out a number of projects and programs. We've been back to you at the end of September as well as the end of October with our capital program, as well as numerous finance committee meetings where we were able to clean up, if you will, projects that have been completed but still had money left in those accounts. We've been going through and cleaning those up and putting them back into the agency's general fund to be used for projects and programs at a later date.
But now you have the audited results and all of that, so. Okay.
Yes. Well, I always believe Rudy and Bob. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
So I have a question, either one of you, Rudy or Brian. So the country's been in a severe economic recession for several months now, years. And what, if any, impact do we see on the RDA area in terms of values of property, or do we see any kind of an impact on the businesses in the RDA from this economic recession? Because I see intuitively walking around in the streets, I see vacant buildings and things like that. So what can you say?
That's a good question, Mr. Horton. I think it's two things. You mentioned the impact on businesses, and I know with our close work that we do with the downtown organization that businesses, not only here but throughout America, are struggling, and they're trying to make their way through there. One of the programs that we've actually that the agency board has actually approved over the past year was the vacant storefront program, art program, where we're looking at vacant storefronts, and instead of them sitting vacant, we've worked with the County Arts Commission to put in various art exhibits. It's been very successful. It's a hard program to keep on top of, because once we put something up, it seems that the building is leased, which is a good thing. So it's almost a program that you want to run itself out of business, because that means buildings are filling up. The other question regarding property taxes and what kind of impacts, with the redevelopment agency, the tax increment seems to lag a year to 2 to 3 years behind the general dips in property tax. You have projects that are coming online maybe this year or last year and are finally entered completely on the tax roll. So these larger projects are coming on, and where the economy is dipping, those finally come into the tax increment stream and keep us level and going up. Actually, last year, as you saw from Mr. Livingston's charts, we actually had an increase in over what we had budgeted. So we continue to see I want to say last year was about a 10% increase in our tax increment revenue. We always budget very conservatively, anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7%. I think last year, noting the economy, it was around 3 to 4%, and we come out 10%. So it lags behind, and so when everything eventually starts catching up, I think we'll continue to see a slower increase, but increases nonetheless.
Yeah, I think remains to be seen in the subsequent people that sit in this committee, which I guess won't be any of us, for a variety of reasons. We'll have to take a look at that because I've been everywhere from about San Francisco on down in the last 4 or 5 days, and I saw nothing but people going out of business and vacant storefronts. And between here and the Bay Area, there's a number of outlet malls and things like that, and there's just empty businesses everywhere. So I'm just not sure, that there'll be enough new activity coming on to compensate. And as you said, it's a lagging indicator. But in this case, I don't know if that's going to be the case. But it's something we need to take a close look at in the future.
That's a very good point. We will continue to do that, and we work very closely with our finance staff to make sure we have a good line on what's coming down the pipe. I just want to jump in here real quick. I do have some more information following Mr. Livingston's presentation about our capital projects and some of the highlights, if you'd like me to jump into that now.
Please do that, Brian.
Okay. So the annual report, this is a good document. It talks about the successes throughout the previous year. And I really have to say that those successes are brought on first by the agency board and the decisions that you make and the projects that you request that we pursue. We then implement those projects, and it's really a collaborative effort. It's not the easiest effort, but it always turns out really well. We work very closely with finance staff, our public works staff, Parks and Rec, and a number of the other departments to implement projects and programs from the agency board. So I just want to say that, first of all. Right now, our existing capital program, I should say, has about 28 capital projects totaling over $36 million. So we've got a full plate, and I'll touch on a few of those later. But things that have happened this past fiscal year 2009, that everybody should be very proud of. The fire station number 1 was completely renovated. ADA access, you name it, it has been improved, seismically retrofitted. It's a wonderful facility. It will keep downtown safe, structurally and otherwise. It's a great building. You all attended the grand opening a few months ago. In addition to that, we also have a new fire station emergency operations center. You all have been or were involved in previous emergencies with the various fires we've had, and the old EOC down in the basement of the police building. I think that was about 800 square foot and a very, very tight fit. This new EOC is about 1,600 square feet, a little over actually, so about double the size, and it accommodates about 42 people at one time, probably more. And you've seen that facility as well. It's amazing, and it will definitely help with future emergency operations. We also completed Plaza Veracruz, which was, I believe, the city's first park, or I should say playground, and that was put in with, I believe it was City Council Resolution 2.5 back in 1908. So it's an interesting bit of history, but a complete revamp of Plaza Veracruz. It looks beautiful. We also completed El Jardín de las Granadas, which is out in front of Casas Las Granadas across from the library. Beautiful facility. Also has the ability to incorporate rotating art, which we have had one display, and we're working on getting another display up in the next month or so. So you'll be seeing that. Spencer Adams parking lot improvements. That's over by the Louise Lowry Davis Center and Spencer Adams Lawn Bowl. We improved that parking lot. And then a couple of the projects we currently have going, our West Beach pedestrian improvement project down on the waterfront, moving ahead. We've got a few of the art components in there, as well as new sidewalks, and that'll be completed in the spring of 2010. We also have the West Downtown pedestrian improvements, and that's just creating a more pedestrian-friendly pathways from the west side, the other side of the 101, to downtown on Ortega and Anapamu. So that's moving along nicely. As far as our affordable housing projects, we have the Bradley property, which the agency board has funded, partially funded, I should say, for the acquisition. And that's through the Housing Authority, and they're going to put up approximately 50 units, and that's over on Bath Street. And they are looking to commence construction in early 2011. So they are working in the design review process. We also have across the street here at 617 Garden Street, the Mental Health Association, a wonderful building, beautiful building that is complete and provides a little bit over 50 units of affordable rental housing for low-income Mental Health Association clients and downtown workers. We also have Casas Las Granadas, which is adjacent to El Jardín de las Granadas, and that is 12 units for downtown workers, another beautiful, beautiful project. And another project currently being put together is what's called Artisan Court, and that also is a housing authority project. It's just down the street here, and it's going to propose to have about 55 units that will house low-income downtown workers, aging foster youth, and the homeless. And they're looking to start construction in fiscal year 2010. So they are really moving forward. Looks like it will be a great project. So we've got a lot going on. We continue to have a lot going on. Our estimated tax increment for fiscal year 2010 is about $20 million. And as you know, just the state continues to be in a budget crisis mode, and they have again come after the redevelopment agency to the tune of about, our redevelopment agency for the tune of about $6.8 million this fiscal year. The California Redevelopment Association has filed a lawsuit, and we are all hoping for the same outcome as we had last year with our lawsuit. And hopefully, in early 2010, we'll get a ruling on that, and hopefully get not have to spend that money, not have to give that money to the state, I should say, and spend it on projects and programs for the project area.
Brian, what have you been finding in terms of the results of bidding on more current bids? Are you getting better prices than you were a couple of years ago?
We are getting extremely better prices than we were a few years ago. You know, just 2, 3, 4 years ago, there were times where everybody was so busy, we actually had to go out and drum up people to submit bids. They were just overworked. And so at this point in time, we're seeing the opposite. We are getting many, many people, very qualified contractors bidding on jobs from not only locals, but throughout the county as well as outside the county.
Are you getting, say, 20% better prices, or do you have a feeling for that?
It's about 20. If my memory serves, working with Public Works, it's anywhere from 20 and sometimes up to 30. It's quite a benefit. So this is a great time to be putting things out to bid, and we'll continue to strive towards that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further comments? Yeah, Mrs. Schneider.
Along the lines on the housing side, because of financing difficulties or making it harder to finance projects, are we, in terms of the projects that you see coming down the pike in the next couple of years, do you see that as being an issue? The Housing Authority, I know, got their tax credits for Artisan Court, which was great. The mom's property didn't, but maybe because they weren't quite as detailed or finished with their plans the way the Housing Authority project was. But are you is there any kind of, with other nonprofit housing agencies, has that still been a issue that you're hearing about, or is it, or not?
I'm sure it is. And, you know, with the Housing Authority and the tax credits, those have always been competitive, and I think they continue to be even more competitive. The submittals are being even more closely scrutinized, and so you really have to have a complete package to make that happen. And thankfully, the Housing Authority always does a very good job of that. So we are hoping. I know Artisan Court got theirs, but we're also hoping, as you said, that the mom's property will come back the next go-around and get theirs approved as well. So it is going to continue to be a struggle, but I think the local folks, we've always had a wonderful local group of affordable housing advocates, and I think they're on top of it, and we'll continue to see some wonderful projects coming forward.
And the other thing to look at into next year in terms of the state and its budget and its impact on the RDA is a potential initiative on, I think, the November ballot that will tighten up rules about what the state can and can't do about the gas tax and redevelopment agency funds and general fund and all that. So it'll be something to look forward to see what happens on top of lawsuits and everything else. So, but we'll see. Great. thank you for a good report.
Would anyone on the committee like to move recommendations A and B?
I'll move this over to council.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Samario, any further action for the committee today?
No, this will be a consent calendar item on today's agenda.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Having nothing else to do today, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.